Hello everybody. So this week I want to start a series of videos talking about different methods that we can use to deal with this difficult period in humanity right now, this quarantine, with a minimum of mental health. So this live is going on in my Instagram account, which is Tariana Rocha, everything together. That's my English Instagram account. I have a number of accounts in different languages and for different subjects. And this is also happening in the Facebook group called Free and Empowered. It's a support group for children of toxic narcissists. Now, before we get started, I just want to give everybody a heads up that the Inner Mastery Lab card is still open till the 30th. So if you want to be part of this program, there's a few bonuses for joining now. You get a free 50-minute session with me if you join now. And also you can get it at a price that is well below what you would get for a 10-week program where you get excellent content to know how to actually build a sense of self in adulthood. If you want to know more about that, take a look at my biography here on Instagram, or take a look at the links available at the description of this video. Now, you know, I'm the sort of person who really enjoys working. I love what I do. It took me a long time to find something that I actually enjoy making money with. And I often use working to entertain myself even. And this week I was trying to be, productive Tari as usual. And there was something inside of me that was kind of whispering, hey Tari, I think it's not the time for that. There's something that you need to look at inside. And me being a nice little workaholic, I'm like, nah, you know what? I'm just going to push through and make it happen or whatever. Well, obviously, when your subconscious mind or part of you needs to be looked at, when there's a wounded part of you that needs some attention, it's going to scream louder and louder to get your attention. And eventually it might just make you have to stop in order to truly take the time to lick those wounds and to understand what's up. So I was forced to pause a couple of days and actually lick my wounds and do some self-therapy. I love inner family systems for that sort of trauma healing therapy. And the point of this whole story is, after doing that, then I felt much lighter, like I was much better equipped to deal with this moment. And like I could also actually, go back to working, because it gets to a point where you don't even want to work, you don't want to do anything. Now, I'm telling you this because I'm not a person who suffers from depression. I've never suffered from depression. And, I'm a person who's a go-getter in many senses. And this situation is forcing me, and maybe it's forcing you and your family and people you know, to stop with the automated behavior and to pause and do what? Take care of one another, take care of ourselves, take care of other people in your life. I don't think that things happen as an accident. I believe that oftentimes life puts us in situations where we do have to stop because we are refusing to deal with certain things. And how interesting that we are collectively dealing with such a situation now. So the point of these next few videos are going to be not just to offer you insights on how you can build a sense of self in adulthood, which is the main focus of my work, but specifically, how can we deal with this moment if you also have to deal with toxic family members? Now, today I want to talk about the gray rock method. I know many of you already know and probably use, even if subconsciously, the gray rock method. Only I want to delve a little bit further into it so we can really understand what it's about. Now, if you're dealing with a toxic personality, just like a narcissistic personality disorder, or someone who's just a malignant narcissist, or who's a pathological narcissist, they're already toxic. If you're dealing with borderlines, if you're dealing with histrionic or antisocial personality types, then you are probably offering these people narcissistic supply. You're offering them something that they want from you that is useful either for their sense of self or for regulating their own emotions. But, you know, these are things that when you give these things to them, you feel drained, and it's almost like a vampirical sort of impact it has on you. You might not be able to put your finger on it, but just oftentimes being in touch with these people is enough to make you feel absolutely drained. So narcissists in particular, they experience what's called psychological death. So they feel empty inside, right? They feel empty inside, and this is what the grandiosity or the need to feel special, even if the way that you feel special is by taking on the biggest role of the biggest victim, right? In the case of many covert narcissists, for example. Because they feel this emptiness inside, they need you to validate how special they are, because they use this specialness as a way of self-medicating for their underlying sensations of being inadequate. And there's many ways that children are programmed from birth to be great sources of narcissistic supply. Now, narcissistic supply is anything, and it could include attention, applause, feeling scared of the narcissist, giving money to the narcissist, validating the narcissist in any way, being the narcissist psychologist, being someone who's always listening to the narcissist's pain. Any sort of attention or power that you give to someone who is a pathological narcissist categorizes as narcissistic supply. Now, children, they might engage in what is it called? Twinning. It's when you become, basically, you learn as a child that if you are like a cheerleader and you say that your mom or your dad are always right, and that the other people that they disagree with are always wrong, and you act like you're their twin, you know, like you have all of the same tastes, the likes and dislikes, like you have the same opinions, right? So some children are like their parents' personal little cheerleader, and their goal, the way that they offer narcissistic supply, is just acting like they're twins with their parents, like they're bestest of friends, and everything you like, mommy or daddy, that's what I like too. So that's one way that you can offer narcissistic supply. Another way is by being your parents' caretaker. So, you know, there's a role reversal, and you actually take care of them. You're their psychologist. You have to always deal with their emotional states or their crises, right? So when they need a reaction out of you, like some validation for how big and unique and special their pain is, there you are confirming, yeah, mom, you're right. You really went through a lot, right? You can also be someone's narcissistic supply when you're their punching bag. So pathological narcissists really can't be vulnerable, and this is a huge part of why they depend on feeling special. Because since they can't just process the sensations of inadequacy, of sadness, you know, depression, of impotence, vulnerability, or any sort of shame, they can't even get in touch with that. They use the specialness in order to feel good about themselves. But they also use what? Punching bags, of course. If you came from a family where there's a toxic narcissistic dynamics, then you know somebody was the scapegoat. And so you can also offer narcissistic supply by being a punching bag, and by allowing narcissists to transfer their really difficult emotions onto you in an attempt to distract themselves from their own pain, and also to make everything seem like you're the wrong one and they are right. So a narcissist might feel humiliated because of something else, but when he goes home, he knows that his wife is a good punching bag, and he can make her feel bad, which then offers him supply by making him feel good, right? Or maybe in your family home, this is done with the children or whatever. You can offer them narcissistic supply by living the life that they wanted to, but that was frustrated, and so they live vicariously through you. This is also food for their ego. Or you can just be an object, right? And they can try to boss you around to get what they want from you, like Maybe they want you to marry someone because the guy's got money, or the guy's got power, or the guy's got status or whatever. And you're just treated like you don't have any sort of personal desires or preferences at all. Now, it's really important that you be perfectly clear about the ways in which you offer narcissistic supply and what the unique dynamics between you and your narcissistic parent are. And the reason is we are trained into these personalities that are very convenient for the narcissist because we are disempowered and we don't have a sense of self. This just means that we think there's this psychological bondage that we can't break free from. It's like, you know, there's this prison and you just have to do what they tell you to do and act the way they tell you to act and be the way they tell you to be. And even though there's like, maybe there's not a gun pointed to your head, you're so terrified at what their reactions to you might be if you don't act according to the identity that they allowed you to have. And this is where the gray rock method is much more than just a method for making the narcissist lose interest in you. It is a method for you to actually build a sense of self. Because listen, narcissistic parents, toxic parents, they know our triggers, and they know our triggers because they created our triggers. They know how to get the response they want out of us. And so long as you are giving them that response, then they have got you in the palm of their hands. So when you're building a sense of self, the gray rock method involves, number one, identifying exactly how you offer narcissistic supply, each of the different triggers and the situations that you feel pulled into one more cycle of abuse by the narcissist. When you're perfectly clear on what your dynamics are, on how you've actually built an identity based on what the narcissist wanted you to be. Like me, I had many problems trying to be nice to people and loving and saving people because I was my mom's psychologist. So my identity was invested in my, coming to the rescue when people were in crisis and stuff. So I needed to be aware of that because I knew that she was going to use calamities and crises to suck me back into behaving as she wanted me to behave. As you start emptying the relationship of the supply that you were used to giving them, in other words, as you stop thinking that there's this invisible rule that says you have to act according to that identity that they approved of, then you create a barrier between you and them. And I'm going to give you some practical examples of how this actually happens. So for example, how do you actually apply the gray rock method? The gray rock method means that you understand how the narcissistic personality works and you know that they're trying to get a reaction out of you and you stop reacting. You become really bland, really boring, really uninteresting. And narcissists who suffer from psychological death, and that just means that they get bored easily and they feel great emptiness inside. They need drama, they need chaos, they need crises. They need to see people down and out so they can feel good about themselves. So they're going to try to put you in situations where you fail or where you feel like a failure, or if you got success somehow, they're going to put you in a situation where you feel that you're only successful because of them, so you're not really all that worthy. There's always going to be a way of getting some sort of supply out of you. So you become a gray rock by really not giving them anything that's interesting. So let's say, for example, that your mom sends really, really long messages in the family group and she's trying to get a certain response. And you generally, because you feel guilty or because you get triggered by her and you want to fight with her, you send her back all of these answers. In the gray rock method, you understand, she's trying to manipulate me, but I am my own person. And to build a sense of self, I have to stop reacting to her. So you just answer, you either don't answer, or you just say something like, oh, okay, mom. And that's it. And you should really have a list not only of what your triggers are, but of what her or his behavior is when they're not getting what they want out of you. Okay. Another way that you would apply the gray rock method. Let's say that they compare you to your brother, to your sister, and this generally ticks you off. Well, you're going to want to know that beforehand they're going to do this to you. And whenever they throw out that comparison, you just look at them and, smile, or say, okay, or all right, and go off and read your book. Lock yourself up in your room and go study or do something else. They might get a reaction out of you through humiliation, right? They might wait for the rest of the family to arrive just so they can attack you. If you know that this is what they do, you gotta be prepared for it. And when they attack you and everyone is laughing, you have to resist the temptation to protect yourself. This is also what they want. So you just smile, go off, do something else. Don't attack them back. Certainly don't tell them that you are applying the gray rock method because they are pathological narcissists, because then they're going to just shame you for that or punish you for that and try to force you to explain to them how are they narcissists, which is just another way of getting attention from you as well. If the way they get a reaction from you is by being sarcastic or by making backhand comments, you want to be aware of that. If what they do is dog whistling, which is when someone makes a comment that is really an attack, but it seems so innocent in the way that it's said in front of other people who don't know the backstory, right? And they do this in public and it's really an attack against you and you know it, but everyone else thinks that it sounds really, really innocent. If you have reactions in those situations normally, stop having those reactions, right? If you get pissed off when they make comments about how fat you are, about your husband, about your wife, about your college degree, about the car that you're driving in, stop having those reactions. If they get a reaction out of you by being the victim and being like, oh, don't you know how much I suffer? No one has suffered as much as I've suffered. Stop giving them all of that empathy and attention. Just be like, yeah, it happens. You'll be fine. And go do something else, right? So one of the ways that, other than being aware of your triggers, being aware of how they behave when they don't get what they want out of you, right? You're also going to want to desensitize yourself to any sort of backlash. Because if you have a long-standing relationship with a narcissist, they will notice that you are not that interesting or you're not really engaged that much anymore. You're not doing what they want you to do, and they might call you out for it. So this means that they might start making fun of you and say things like, oh, you're too good now. What, are you doing meditation? You know, why don't you want to talk to me? Or they might in any sort of way kind of capitalize on the fact that you're not talking to them. And then you're going to feel forced to explain why you're not talking to them. Don't do this. Just continue being an uninteresting gray rock. And what's going to help you is if you imagine yourself dealing with that situation before it actually happens. So in my case, I needed to imagine my mom going through some sort of crisis and her starting to send me all of those messages about how she needed to be saved from God knows what. It might just be like, oh, you'll be fine, Mom. If you prepare for it mentally beforehand, you will have greater strength in order to deal with it when it comes up, right? Remember, during the gray rock method, this is super important, guys. You don't want to pick and choose what you're going to use the method for. You want to use it across all areas when it involves dealing with the pathological narcissist. So this means that you're not going to be like, well, I think this is an abusive comment, so I'm not going to be reactive. I won't give them what they want. But then when the narcissist is acting all nice and sweet, you're like, oh, you know what? They're not that bad. And then you're engaged in conversation again. Remember, narcissists can use anything as a weapon if they want to. And the gray rock method involves you ignoring them and not giving them the reaction they want, even when they're being nice. For example, they can use being nice for all sorts of manipulative and toxic reasons. They might be doing it in order to get information from you that they're going to use against you at the first opportunity. They might be being nice because they've noticed that you're not giving them supply and they want to suck you back into one more cycle of abuse. They might be being nice because they want to generate a type of debt that you will never be able to free yourself from. So it's particularly important that you use the method at all times, right? Now, obviously for you, guys that are actually, you know, in this, under the same roof with a narcissist, you're gonna want to be careful about how fast you use the gray rock method, because if you've had, like I said, if you've had a long-standing relationship with a narcissist, they might actually call you out on what you're doing and try to trigger you about it. So the question here is, if you live with them, how is it that you can be busy all the time, you know, not really kind of eat at the same time when they eat, or be in the public spaces where they're gonna be? What are the different ways that you can not be accessible, not be available? To which point does it make sense to start being uninteresting, right? And you're gonna wanna do it slowly so that it doesn't actually create a bad situation for you. Now, remember, all of this is what it's going to do in the long run is it's going to make the narcissist starve, because that what you were feeding them isn't coming anymore, and they really can't regulate their emotions without a punching bag. They really can't run away from shame, from depression, from inadequacy, from all sorts of heavy emotions without people validating them constantly. And they really can't deal with boredom because of psychological death. So as you know, kind of empty the relationship and start giving them what they want, eventually, what are they going to do? Eventually, they're going to want to discard you. And this might be scary, particularly if, despite having noticed that your relationship with them is toxic, you still don't have a support network. We might convince ourselves that, you know, this is crappy, but I'm going to be all by myself. I don't know how to socialize. I don't know what to do if I'm not here. This is why I say that the gray rock method is an opportunity for you to start building a sense of self, because you're going to start really noticing not only what sort of narcissistic supply you were giving them, but also what sort of tiny little crumb of love they're giving you, or whatever it is that they're still giving you that's keeping you in that toxic relationship. And as you become more and more aware of this, you can start working on those areas where you don't feel strong enough to exist without them. And oftentimes we won't do the gray rock method or go low contact or no contact, not because it's not toxic. We know it's toxic, but because we're so scared that we cannot exist apart from the identity that they decided that we have to have, and from that toxic dynamics that we've experienced our entire lives. Okay, guys. So that's what I wanted to tell you about the gray rock method. Let me know how you've been able to apply it, or whether you've been able to apply it at all during this difficult quarantine period. How's it going living with your toxic narcissistic parent, husband, whatever it is that you're dealing with? Let me know in the comments. Send me a message. I love hearing what you guys have to say. If you want to spend the next few weeks understanding what's going on inside of you, what's the origin of your anxiety, why you can't feel like you can call the shots in your own life just because your parents exist, then you might be interested in participating in an entirely online program called the Inner Mastery Lab. It's made specifically for you guys who suffered childhood narcissistic abuse, because I understand what that does to your sense of self, and I understand that the cure comes from reconnecting with your true self. If you want to know more about it, then take a look at the link in my biography, or if you're on YouTube, take a look at the link in the description of this video. And that's it, guys. That's all I wanted to tell you. Let's really take this opportunity to take care of ourselves and to take care of one another. Stay tuned over the next few days. We're going to be talking about a number of different ways that you can take care of yourself, like maybe you haven't done in a long time. And if you want to know about some other things that I'll be doing in this quarantine period to maintain my mental health, to maintain my happiness, because I live by myself, people, you know, I really am isolated here. Then follow my Instagram account, Tariana Rocha, and in the stories, I'll be sharing all sorts of different things with you guys. All right, for us to keep mentally healthy. That's it, guys. Hope you liked the video. Let me know if you need anything else. And bye-bye.